Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Are you out there?
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Althea Brooks, and I'm Senior Director of Lifetime Learning in the Office of Engagement, and it's always a pleasure to welcome you to More Than the Score. I've been saying all fall that we're celebrating our 20th anniversary of More Than the Score. Well, this is our final in season, More Than the Score, a little sad for us, but we have a special little sweet treat for you on your way out of the theater today, so make sure you grab one on the way out. Also a first for More Than the Score, both of our faculty are celebrating birthdays this weekend. Please help me wish them a happy birthday. And we'll have special treats for them as well, so. All right, let's see. So our speakers this morning are Mark Sherriff, wave your hand, and Stanley Stepanic, and they'll be giving us a great talk on a course that they co-teach, and this talk is called Exploring the World of Vampires Through Video Games, and I'll introduce them in just a second. Before we begin, go ahead and silence the ringer on your phone, power down, be here for an hour. Hold your questions to the end. A microphone will be brought around to you. Ask just one brief question. Speak right into that microphone. State your name and your UVA affiliation, and we appreciate that. And if you want to find out any more about our fall programs, the remaining fall programs we have, or online offerings, please visit engagement.virginia.edu/learn. Okay. All right, let me introduce our esteemed faculty members this morning. So Stanley Stepanic, who's done a number of talks for us over the years, is an associate professor of Slavic Languages and Literatures in College and Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. He's a double who. All right, he's a double who. Having earned his MA and PhD from the University of Virginia. He's published 3 textbooks, and most recently, Stan published a unique blend of fiction and nonfiction, A Vampire There Was. Stan is frequently invited to deliver presentations and often gives media interviews primarily concerning the vampire. He manages an underground media site and small record label, Deaf Sparrow. Mark Sherriff is the professor of computer science in the Department of Computer Science, having joined the department in 2007. He currently serves as associate department chair and director of the Bachelor of Science degree program in the School of Engineering and Applied Science. His teaching interests include software engineering, video game design, and mobile app development. His research interests are computer science education, the scholarship of teaching and learning, and gamification. He received his BS in computer science from Wake Forest University in 2002, and both his MS and PhD from North Carolina State University. Can I just back up? Wake Forest? I think
Yes.
we're playing Wake Forest today.
Yes.
Go Who's?
Yeah, that's fine. I was at Wake Forest for 4 years. I've been here for 19. So.
All right. His heart bleeds orange and blue. Please join me in welcoming Stan Stepanic and Mark Sherriff to More Than the Score.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, and good morning. Oh, yeah, the mic is hot. I apologize. I'm dropping into teacher voice already. I think we both might do that. She said, I'm Mark Sherriff.
Stan Stepanic.
And this is an interesting mix. You want to go ahead and get us over to the first slide here so we can look upon our good friend Alucard, represented here from the game Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Who is Alucard?
Son of Dracula.
Son of Dracula.
Also, it's Dracula backwards, if you pay attention to the
Look
name.
at that. See, if you want to take one thing away right now, you've got it right now. You can stand up, walk out. You've got your one fact that you can share with someone over lunch today. So how about we start with, what is a vampire?
Yeah, this is a question I get asked quite a bit. What exactly is a vampire? There's tons of answers to that, but whenever we were running our course, I just figured I'd try out a Google image search to see what it brought up. This is the first one that came up. First one, actually.
Yeah.
Various vampires.
Okay.
It's there. But as we have here, this is stuff based on media from the 20th and 21st centuries. So it's not really a vampire, if you mean the original vampire in particular. But there are some vampire details here. Panicula. Yeah, we just finished reading that the other day.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm partial to the Count. I'm partial
the Count, yes.
Do you see another vampire up here that you know? Who else do you know up here? The sparkly one. Yes, indeed. Who did we have? All right, yeah. Well, all right, so now we know what a vampire is, or at least what Google thinks. But what do we think? What do we think about a video game? Okay, this is you're instantly thinking, I got like my Marios, I got my Pac-Mans. Pac-Men, I don't know. You've got those. Let's ask Google again. Google, help us out. What's a video game? Huh. Well, that's not really a video game, right? These are just characters. These are just, folks that we see in games. Who do we see up here? So those of you that have played games, who's someone you see up here? We have Mario. We have what? Gordon Freeman right here from the Half-Life series. We have Dead Center right here looking all intense. That's Kratos. Very good. Of course, Link here with his bow and arrow. Master Chief. Yeah, look, we've got a clown. I'm guessing that's Fortnite. So, who was that? The Witcher. Yeah, we've got. And then a random sim from The Sims. Yeah, that's from Zelda right there. That is Link from. That one would be from Breath of the Wild. So. We've just answered all the questions, right? This is a vampire. This is a video game. Obviously, they go together. Do they? I don't know. What do we, how do we even decide that these two very, very random things were something that we could actually teach a class about? Now, I teach a class in software engineering, and Dan teaches courses in Dracula. And how did this even happen? Well, like many good ideas and bad ideas, it started on Reddit. If you're someone that happens to go on the UVA subreddit, which Reddit was actually started at UVA, if you didn't know that. I know this is a little hard to see, but you can see it back in the playlist. Basically, what this came from, there was a thread back in January of 2024 called Bucket List of Classes. And I don't know, look, if you never heard of Stan's Dracula class, it is legendary. People love it. Hundreds of people take it every year. People take it over the summer. People come back to UVA just to take it over the summer. People give up their winter break just to take this man's Dracula class. It's just that good. It's just that good. And so his class always shows up in this list. Always. Now me, being the slightly snarky individual I am, drop into the mentions and I say, I think my next career goal is to figure out how to teach a class that would even show up in this list. I'm the only one that gets super excited about discussing agile versus plan-driven development. And if there's any software engineers in here, you just got very excited too. For everyone else, you're like, what? Exactly, I understand. And then right here, lurking abject terror. See, I'm Professor Sherriff. He's lurking abject terror. That's how cooler he is than me, okay?
Yeah. So
this happened. Let's make a vampire video game class. He knew I taught video games. He caught my attention. He caught my attention very quickly, and I start listing stuff. He says, let's meet. I said, oh, that's great. So we set up a time. I go to his office. Coolest guy I ever met. I mean, look at him. He's the coolest guy I ever met. I look like I just got off a shift at Best Buy, okay? Khaki pants, blue polo shirt. And I'm like, I don't know, this is going to work out. But turns out, not only does the material work well together, we worked well together, and we put together this course that we hope today we can give you a little bit of a taste of. So, really quickly, before we get into vampires, I want to know, again, from the audience, how did you learn about, where did you learn anything about vampires? Where have you heard anything about vampires from? Books? Movies? Halloween?
Varney.
Oh, wow. Man, we got a deep cut back there.
That's a good one. Buffy.
Okay, yeah. So what we were talking about, what we figured out, is that many of you have learned about stuff from vampires from movies and books, and some of you, and many people, actually learned about it through video games too. If we think about it, movies, books, folklore, these are all ways that we share knowledge, share stories as a culture. And as we moved into the 20th and 21st century, video games added to that category. It's another vehicle for communicating these ideas. And that's what we built the class around.
Yeah, so we wanted to learn, we wanted to show students how things went from now. This actually took a lot of digging. This is the earliest vampire video game in history. It was an old arcade game from Japan called Dracula or Dracula Hunter from 1979, the year we were both born. Yay! Happy birthday!
So it's really old is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shh. So we were lucky enough that there was actually somebody that dumped this on YouTube because it was like a rumor that the game even existed for years. So how did it go from this to something modern? Oh, wait. Like Bloodlines 2, which just dropped, and honestly, I've heard isn't very good. But still, it just came out like 3 weeks ago. So this is the one we mentioned. That was now, in our defense, when we made this slide, it was before it dropped, so the reviews weren't out yet. Okay? So how did it go from there then? So we had two objectives in this course, so we covered this in another vampire game there called #Blood. It's pretty cool. Understand, first off, where vampires actually came from. Give students a nice general overview of what this thing is. Because, as Mark was saying earlier, most people know about vampires from movies, video games, and things like that, but they rarely actually know anything about what came before. The fact that one of you even mentioned Varney the Vampire is pretty impressive. So that, and then to understand how video game concepts of design can be used to create a vampire video game. This is an important part that was a component of the course. All right, so I want to start by giving you the general rundown the students got real quick of where vampires came from, and then we'll switch over to Mark and he'll tell you some more about how this is incorporated into video games. All right, so one of the important details is that the vampire that people know today in video games, movies, whatever, primarily is derived from original Slavic folklore about vampires. This is where it comes from. Okay, there aren't any extra details added. There are things that people did over time to change it, but the original stuff came from Eastern Europe. So this is always something that people find interesting. Generally speaking, what you know of as a vampire today, in terms of what it was originally, it's basically what you would call a zombie. What most of you people would call a zombie from a film or something is technically what a vampire actually looked like in folklore. It was a reanimated corpse in the vast majority of cases. It was a dead body that came back from the grave and did a variety of things. Okay, so it looked something like this. That's actually pretty accurate. That's why I chose this random Euro trash film. So reanimated corpse, and also vast majority of cases originally it was only men. Only men could become vampires, never women. We don't actually know where the shift occurred, where then women could also become vampires, but originally it was typically a man, and in most cases, as you'll find in original folktales that we have, some as early as the 17th century, so 1600s, it's usually always mentioned that he was a practitioner of magic. And in Slavic culture in general, if women practice magic, that can be usually a good thing. In fact, most of your midwives in Russia up through 1930s under Stalin were your local witch, actually. And that was fine. But if men practiced magic, that was not good. Generally speaking, they were to be avoided, and they would come back from the grave and then attack you. So most of the times you'll see it's mentioned in folklore that the vampire is a male, and it's a practitioner of magic. In Russian, the word is Kaldun, shadowy or black fate in Polish. So then we get to what's called the vampire epidemic, or the great vampire epidemic of the 18th century. There were actually examples of this before, but what happened is people started to believe that there were vampires all over the place. And they were digging up hundreds, if not thousands of bodies to chop off their heads and burn them and stake them. And this hysteria is how the idea of the vampire first entered Western Europe, because reports of this, as they started to come in through Austria and other parts of Western Europe, people wanted to know, like, wait, is this real? Is this actually a thing where a dead body can come back? Like, if there's so many people over there that are doing this, there must be some validity to this. So what's going on over there in Eastern Europe? This is crazy. And then, after those ideas get in there and the idea of the vampire is debunked as something real, Western Europeans essentially appropriate the idea. They're like, well, you know, it's too bad it doesn't actually exist, but dang, it's really cool though. It's a really cool conception of this thing that they call the vampire over there. So it starts to enter literature. Now, there are technically some things you have in poetry before this, but they're very minor and they're not really specifically vampires. The first time we actually get a vampire in popular culture is called The Vampire, subtitled A Tale, 1819 by John Polidori. This is written within the same year that Frankenstein is first written. In fact, it was written in the same situation. The reason that Frankenstein was written was to answer a challenge by another author named Lord Byron. He wanted to see who could write the best spooky story. Mary Shelley won that bet because she wrote Frankenstein. But he wrote The Vampire. which arguably has more cultural reach than Frankenstein ever did. You know what Frankenstein is, but the impact of this is unprecedented, really. And so over time, as students learned, eventually, after a long chain of things, including Varney, which comes in the middle of the 19th century, we eventually get to Dracula 1897. But the thing about Dracula is really, there was nothing new about it. Stoker only introduced one new thing in this book, and that's the vampire has no reflection in a mirror. That's it. Everything else he does in there has already been done, going all the way back to 1819. Dracula really wasn't popular when it was released. Nobody really cared about it because it was something they had already seen in some form. But today, that's like the real keystone for vampire media in general, is Dracula and the various adaptations of him that come afterwards, including video games. So there's tons of examples of this in the modern day. The Count we saw earlier, you used to be able to, you could dress up as the Count. Keep in mind that this used to be a reanimated corpse that would come back to kill you and do horrible things to your family. But it's okay if it's teaching a kid math now, and nobody cares. It's okay if it advertises a chocolate-flavored cereal for your children. You can have that now. These ideas are inconceivable in original folklore. They don't make any sense, actually. And now what we have here is we have patterns. We have mental models, things that people are used to seeing of the vampire. And by the time those things are all in place and we get the video games, and there's, again, Dracula Hunter, Dracula from 1979, we start to see by the late 70s and early 80s that these ideas are sitting there, and then programmers start to use them. Do you want me to click for you? I guess.
I'll take it from here. And I want to keep, talking about this idea of mental models a little bit more. So, like, if we were to back up here, so I'm going to ask you, Stan, so you can step us through this. What is something that we see here in the count, as in 1, 2, 3, count, that count? What is something that we see in the count that has become like just something we think about with vampires?
First off, the voice he just did. The vampire accent. I can talk like
What
this.
are you talking about?
See? As soon as you do that, you become a vampire, right? I can start doing like this, right? I'm so glad you came today to listen to our speech. And you're like, oh yeah, that guy's a vampire now because he does this accent. Bela Lugosi, late 20s, early 30s. That's where that comes from. Other mental models, the widow's peak hairline. That was Bela Lugosi's hairline. Also Christopher Lee. 2 teeth.
Right there?
Yeah.
There we got the picture right there. You can see it?
Yeah, that's Christopher
Where's the
Lee.
laser button? There it is.
Yeah.
Is that right there?
Yeah. I should have had a Lugosi picture. I didn't realize I did. Yeah. 2 teeth, which originally comes from Varney, actually. Varney introduced that in the 1840s. 2 teeth were not there originally. Originally, the vampire had a full set of sharp teeth or bigger teeth because it was a rotting corpse and its teeth were exposed. Cape and collar goes back to literature and theater, really primarily in the 19th century. What else we got?
How about the monocle for aristocratic nature?
Yeah, exactly. The suggestion of he's a count, he's aristocratic in some way. And we can see the same imagery essentially on Count Chocula as well, almost identical in certain respects.
Got the cape.
Yeah,
He's got a double widow's peak, man. He's a super
Twice
vampire.
the vampire. Yeah.
It's tough being a vampire of chocolate cereal.
Yeah.
But all of these things, now we have these ideas that when you see this, when you see the cape and cowl, you see the 2 teeth, you see the widow's peak, you start to immediately make connections, right? And we all do this. Those idea of mental models are something that we have throughout, all of our life. So here's another random example of this. We'll take it out of vampires just for 1 second. If I was to hand you a handful of dice, okay, just the normal cube, in D&D terms, I'd call it a D6, right? 6-sided die. If I handed those to you and I said, do something with it, what would you do with it? Roll it. Like I saw at least a dozen people here do this, right? When I do this activity with younger elementary kids, they start stacking them because that's their mental model, right? They have building blocks. Oh, these are just blocks with cool things on the side like A, B, C, whatever, and they start building. It's only later when you start playing board games that mental model evolves into something different. And so if we start thinking about these ideas about vampires, you start asking questions like, how did we keep these mental models going through video games, right? Because when you've read books, you've thought about Halloween, you've gone to Spirit Halloween, and you've seen the pictures, you make assumptions for what a vampire should be. Give me something else. What's something else you know about vampires that we haven't talked about? Something just instantly, that's a vampire thing. Bat, that's a great one. Garlic, that permission to enter your home. Hate sunlight.
Wooden stake.
Drinking
I think she
blood.
said wooden stake up there.
Wooden stake, no reflection. Garlic.
Coffins,
No one
garlic.
doesn't like water. All of those things. Yeah. And thralls. Yeah. These are all fancy. See? You have come to these things through cultural knowledge, through books that you've read, stories you've read, movies that you've watched, and those instantly make connections. And so what if we took those mental models and had students think about it? And this is where we came here with our class, right? Because I'm a big proponent. Video games are art. They are an art form. They have, you can look in games and see theater, you can see drama, you can see narrative, you can see music, you can see all sorts of art within them, but also there's the art of the mechanic. So when I use the term game mechanic, I'm talking about when I press A, Mario go up, like that's a jump, that's a mechanic, that's something I'm doing. If you think about a game where you have a certain set of resources, maybe some people in here have played Settlers of Catan or something like that, where you have cards that you're dealing with. These are called game mechanics. And so how did the stuff that we have learned here about vampires and these mental models evolve into games? Well, let's take one. Let's take garlic. I know. Everyone's here instantly wants to go get Italian food at Sal's downtown now. I understand. Now, in any other video game, not vampire related, you pick up garlic and you go, what? Why do I have this? There's one, I have to put an asterisk for anyone who's going to check me on this. There's one exception, and that's Wario Land, where you can pick up garlic and then he burps. We're not talking about that game. We're talking about other games. Okay? He actually might pass gas. I'm not going to get into it. But regardless, you pick up garlic in a game that you know about vampires, and what do you instantly think?
Weapon.
You think weapon. In what other context do you look at this and go, weapon? Danger. Be careful of garlic. Well, part of that came from here. So right here, brought to us by our good friends at Superbit, we have cartridges. These are from the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and these are the boxes that this came from. You can see the art on them. So here is the original Castlevania game that was released in 1986. And I believe Simon's Quest was released in 1987. I believe that was 1989. Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Hey, Stan, what are some mental models that we've got up here?
Widow's Peak, we got teeth, we got a Bela Lugosi, Christopher Lee look, we got a cape and collar. By the way, it's black and red, which is actually what Lugosi's cape was colored black and red in the movie. You just can't tell because it's black and white. Christopher Lee's cape there. Let's see what else we got here. We got a vampire hunter too. It's technically another mental model, but we're talking about the vampire specifically. And I think, he's going to use a castle there, so he's aristocratic. He lives in this Gothic castle, and it's crumbling. I think, is there a bat over there to left his face? It's kind of hard to use. I think so.
Right there, yeah. Bat.
Yes.
Look at that. And here's the thing. Do you know where this art was produced? Japan. These mental models are not limited to just the United States. These are mental models that have been pushed forward in many, many cultures just because of the prevalence of these ideas. So if we were to take garlic in particular, let's go into Castlevania 2. Matter of fact, you can go to a shop, buy some garlic. It has special powers. I mean, I know that today you might get a supplement. It's like, buy garlic, it'll help you in some way, these garlic pills or whatever. But here, no, it has special powers. It kills death. See this right here? That's 8-bit garlic. Trust me, it's 8-bit garlic. The graphics, this is 1987 graphics. You got to kind of roll with it. But right here, this is Simon Belmont, who is a representation of Van Helsing, correct? And the idea of the vampire hunter. So there's other aspects of the stories that still come in here as well. Buy some garlic. And these kept going forward. So this was another very fun game that we played in class. If you've never played this one, I don't know whether to recommend you do it or not.
I like it. Yeah.
Why don't you tell them what Night Trap is about?
So one of the things about Night Trap that I always thought was interesting is people, when they hear about it, because it's a legendary game, it was one of the first real video game controversies because of some of the content in it. But lots of people don't even recognize that it's a vampire game at first. They don't know. But It's one of these old like live action videos or FMV type games where you essentially are watching various short scenes of an overall, like what's basically a B movie. And as you move the camera around to different rooms, it's kind of showing you some of the gameplay there. Certain things will happen only at certain times as you're watching it. And so when certain things are occurring, if you press the buttons at the correct time, you'll capture the vampires. And there's a family of vampires, and then there are these sort of like vampire slaves they have. And I'm forgetting the name of them currently, but yeah, but they're kind of like these weird like pseudo half vampires, so it's kind of like a twist on the folklore. And they're trying to trap these young girls inside this house that are coming there like co-eds, and then one of them is part of the SCAT or Sega Control Attack.
The Sega Control Attack.
That's hunting down the vampires, but it's essentially like it's a vampire B movie in video game form. You actually get to watch scenes from this movie as you play it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I want you to picture TNT or TBS at like 1 a.m. You know, you're just struggling to stay awake and you're like, oh, what's on? And this is what you would see, okay? You got over an hour and a half of real video at like 320 by 240 pixels, okay? It's like this big. And it's non-stop action. I promise this game is about as exciting as using menus in Microsoft Word. But you do have this real video here as your mission's time bomb. 5 beautiful codes, soft and eerie, hooded. Anyway, this game is in 2025. Remember, this was made in 1992. Students, we could have them play this for free in their browser. That's kind of what was going on. And we had them play this game, and they're like, Professor, are you sure this is like, this was fun in 1992. Don't worry, it was great. But this is just another instance of how it's taking these ideas, these mental models, and just putting another spin on it. They were gathering blood, is what one of the things that they were doing in this environment. And we move all the way towards even modern games here. You're going to have to remind me on this one. Which one is this?
Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt.
Masquerade Blood Hunt. Thank you very much. But you can see, again, you've got the teeth. You've got... I was doing a bat here. Yeah. Superpowers. There's another mental model is that vampires are stronger than your average bear, sort of thing. And we keep pushing them forward because there are ideas that we could use here to create interesting game mechanics. So what we challenged our students to do was this. They had to go and research a mental model. Now, whether it was the use of garlic, it was what light did to them, what were the other ones? Drinking blood came up a lot. What were some of the other mental models they did a lot of?
Sunlight, garlic.
Sunlight, mirrors.
With bats, I know there were a couple with
lots of
bats. Yeah.
Lots of bat games.
And this one here, I guess the vampire hiding in plain sight. That was an interesting one.
Yeah.
There was a stake involved there.
There is a stake involved. That's true. There was a stake involved there. So what we told them was this. Research these mental models. Pick one that you think is very interesting. And if you think about it, you got to that idea when you did that research. You read stories. You went and looked up articles. You might have watched a movie, and they talked about how that mental model evolved. Then we said, okay, video games are just another part of this, another part of this landscape of media that communicates these ideas. What we want you to do is decide, are you going to reinforce that mental model, or are you going to subvert that mental model and do something different? For instance, Twilight, the movies, I would argue, subvert some of the mental models of vampires for its own benefit, like sparklies. What are some other recent vampires that have subverted some models?
Okay, well, let's see. Twilight being one of the bigger ones. More recent examples.
Yeah, I took the easy one, sorry.
Yeah, that's an easy one there. I gotta think if there's any new twists that I've come across recently that I thought were really cool.
What's the latest movie that the one that just came out? That was Ryan Coogler directed it.
Oh, Sinners.
Sinners, thank you.
Sinners, yes. Now on that one, let me think. Hotel Transylvania, that has some classic ideas in that one, yeah, but let's think. And Sinners, one of the things that they didn't change too much in that, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There was sunlight was affected the vampires. They'd stay out of sunlight. Oh, there was one idea in there. I wouldn't call it new, but one of the things that made that movie kind of neat is that once the vampires turn each other, they're all mentally linked as one giant, like, gestalt being, basically. That was kind of cool. But yeah.
So some other interesting subversions. So we said go off and do stuff. So we have some screenshots up here we'll talk through. Here's some other examples that did not make it to the slides just because we had so many examples. There was one game where you actually you played as Dracula, and you intentionally collected garlic, and it gave you gas, and that's what let you jump higher. The game was called Count Flatula. You're welcome. That dad joke is going to live rent-free in my head for a long time. There was another one that was a Italian restaurant cooking game where the vampire had to avoid garlic when also making Italian dishes. So that one kind of leaned into it. There was a vampire dating game. That was another interesting one. But let's talk about the ones we got up here. So this one right here, you play as Dracula. Notice you're coming out of the coffin right here. There's another mental model that was being reinforced. I think those are actually supposed to be little bat wings. I don't know. But anyway, you have this daylight moon meter up here, basically telling you how much night you have before the sun comes out to then kill you as you're trying to make your way around this maze. So that is another reinforcement of that mental model. This one is more of a Castlevania-esque sort of Dracula hunter sort of game. And of the items that you have up here, look at what we got. Garlic, garlic, garlic. Apparently they went to some sort of garlic thing and just farmed for garlic. So there you go. Over here we had a family of vampires. We have the black cat. That's not one that we mentioned. That's just kind of one that kind of goes along with it with Halloween in general, just kind of that spooky idea. But you have the aristocratic manor here as another thing that they're pushing for, and then Dracula being up here. And I know this was one of your favorite games. You want to talk about this one right here?
Do you remember the name of it though?
Oh gosh. Oh, I should have looked that up. No, I'm sorry. I don't remember the name of that game.
So basically you were like a vampire hunter kind of like bouncer, and then people would come to this party, and then based on clues you had, like you look at their ID and stuff like that, you had to determine if the person coming to the party was a vampire or not, and then if you determined they were, you didn't let them in, you would then stake them and like kill them. So it was a really interesting game. Pretty much only worth a single playthrough, because once you play through it, there's that same guy again. But yeah, there are various details you had to look at, and then of course the stake being the
so you had
weapon.
Yeah, you had the stake right here. Now this one, I believe this gentleman turned out not to be a shifty character. I believe the second character that would come up to you in this game, they pulled out their ID and the birth date was like 1692 or something like that. I think the students were trying to give you an easy one to start with. But you could do something like, you had these usable items over here that if you thought it was a vampire, you could hold up a cross, which is another one Christian symbolism used as a way of warding off evil spirits or vampires. You could hold it. It was a one-time thing. Use the cross, and apparently it just poofed into air, I guess. I don't know. But regardless, you can hold up the cross. And if they're like, what the heck? Then they're like, oh, you're cool. Come on in. But if they hissed and like went back, you're like, vampires, stake them. So that was a really fun game too. So this class had about 150 students in it, a combination of computer science majors and liberal arts majors and all sorts of other majors around the school. And you might think, oh my gosh, how did these people make video games? Well, it turns out anyone in here, if you're interested in making a game, it really is easier than ever to do that. So these games up here use different programming systems. Some of them have little to no actual programming per se in it. You would be able to just kind of bring in pictures and kind of highlight things and say what you want it to do. This system up here in the upper right was built with something called GB Studio, which is available for free at a website called itch.io, which is kind of an indie game website where you can get things to play and tools to use. And this is what many students used who had no programming experience whatsoever, and they were very, very, very successful with it. Some CS majors wanted to do it too because they didn't want to do heavy programming. Fine too. These two games over here are built in a system called Pico 8. And you might look at this and think, oh, it looks kind of like these guys down here, these 8-bit games. That was the idea. Pico 8 is a modern video game design system, but it's made to look like you're making games from the 1980s and 1990s. It's just way more powerful. But it does very similar graphics. And this is written in a programming language called Lua, which is not a terribly difficult programming language to learn. It's used for a lot of things like plugins for browsers and things like that. And this game down here was written in yet a more advanced engine called Godot, which is named for waiting for Godot because they say they'll never finish getting all the features in it, so that's why they named it Godot. We always have stories in computer science for why we name programs and systems. And Godot is a relatively newcomer on the field, but there are games out there that do use this that you might have played. Curse of the Golden Idol is one, Zodiac EX. You can use this for quote unquote real games. Not that you can't with these as well. These are often going to be more smaller games. We opted not to use some of the more traditional tools that you might have heard of, like Unity. Unity is probably the largest game engine out there right now. Many, many, many games that you have played, I'm certain, on your phone, on your laptop, on your Nintendo Switch, have used Unity. Hollow Knight Silksong, one of the biggest games that was released most recently, built in Unity. The learning curve for that was a little higher than we wanted to do. We wanted to keep it to something that was accessible for anyone to do it. And also, we wanted to make sure that students who had the Dracula class were getting new material they didn't necessarily have from there as well. So all said and done, the students seemed to like it. We had fun. We definitely want to give a thanks to the Jefferson Trust, who gave us several $1,000s in order to buy VR headsets for our students to play VR games during class, which, by the way, having students who have never done VR before and putting VR helmets on them to play vampire games where they jump out at them is extremely entertaining. How dare you give me a bad grade on this assignment? You hear them scream like. But they also helped us buy some Steam Decks so that we could let students play these games in class. So we tried to make it as fun and as entertaining as possible. It wasn't going to be a requirement for graduation, but when you're here, when you're at UVA and you have the opportunity to take courses that are just going to enrich you and not just the things that you have to do in order to graduate, we're all about that. So look at that. Almost 40 minutes on the nose.
Yay.
Go us. So we are happy and excited and delighted to take any questions that you have, either from here on the floor, or I don't know if there's an opportunity to ask online. We are more than happy to.
Oh, there's a microphone. Okay.
Yep. Let me get up there. Get my steps in.
Grab the water.
Is there a question?
The here one right there.
Yeah, I was just curious, what do you think of Blood Omen in terms of vampire game, vampire-related stuff?
That's one I've heard of but haven't played. You played Blood Omen?
I have not played Blood Omen.
Oh, you guys need to.
Okay.
How old is that one?
Excuse me.
Oh, okay. PlayStation 1.
A vampire running around saying Ve Victus and sucking people's blood literally out of the air, just pulling it
Okay.
out.
Wait, no, the Legacy of Kain series.
Yeah,
Legacy
the-
of Kain Blood Omen.
right.
That-
The ori- it was-
Oh, yes, now
yes,
yes.
yes.
The,
Sorry,
the original one.
Yes,
Yes.
we had them look at that game. Yes.
Yes, we have played that game. Sorry, it took me. I was like I feel like
Yeah,
I
now you
played
say-
this,
yeah,
and
now
I think
Kain.
about it. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
What do we think? It's a PlayStation 1 game. That's what.
It has some like Diablo aspects to it.
Yeah.
It's a cool game.
What vampire mechanics since the birth of vampires in literature and games, what mechanics in movies, games, books have proven to be unpopular, like introduced and then faded away? Like sparkly vampires is probably not going to last, but is there other mechanics that just got introduced in a book and just like, no, never appeared again?
There's a ton of little details like that. One of the ones I always thought was interesting was that didn't survive from old folklore into popular culture is that in original folklore, the vampire was supposed to have a compulsion to count. Now, you might think, oh, well, that's why the Count in Sesame Street does that. That's a complete coincidence that character even came about. Original folklore, one of the things that they would do is if they dug up a body and they thought it was a vampire, they would take poppy seeds and cover it and then rebury it. Because the vampire would wake up, poppy seeds are black and small, and it would start to count them in the dark, but it's too hard to see. So by the time the sun comes up, it has never finished, and it goes to sleep, wakes up again, and then starts all over. So there are things like, yeah, as dumb as it sounds, that was one of the ways to stop a vampire, throw poppy seeds on it.
Wow.
So you don't see that anywhere in the media.
No, poppy seeds are not a weapon in Castlevania.
Yeah, that's an original one there.
Huh.
Now, sparkling actually was introduced by Anne Rice, by the way. It was not introduced by Twilight. She did that first, 1976.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering what effect did the character Carmilla have on the vampire perception overall?
Well, Carmilla,
He does a whole unit on Carmella. I'll just go sit down.
Yeah, we got a whole thing on Carmilla for this class, and actually I talk about Carmilla more in our game class than I did in my other class. Carmilla, just so everyone knows, is a novella that came out in the 1870s, written by an Irish author named Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. At the time when he publishes this, the vast majority of vampires in literature were creepy old guys attacking young girls in their bedrooms at night. That's what Varney was. So his twist on that was, instead of it being an older guy attacking young girls, it's going to be a young girl of the same age as those girls who looks like she's like 14 to 16 and is presented in a way that she seems to be attracted to her victims. That's what he did with it. So when that came out, it really caused a sensation. And the person who was working for him as a freelance drama critic at the time was Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. That story, that novella, inspired him to write that. So Carmilla's had an impact in a variety of ways. One of the things we talk about in our class is how basically over time the Carmilla image becomes this image of like sexuality as a weapon. And most female vampires will take off of that. That's one of the things we focused on. So to be brief, there's a lot more I could talk about. But
Yeah, if you looked at the video game Blood Rain, 1 and 2, that's really where that idea really crystallizes in video games, because that's kind of when the graphical fidelity got to a point where the idea could be used.
Right here.
Oh,
sure.
How alive, so to speak, are vampires in Poland?
Poland. Yes, about Poland. Polska. Okay. So vampire belief, going back to the vampire epidemic, went all over Eastern Europe. We have cases in Poland of vampire burials. In fact, there was one they just found, I think it was a year and a half ago. I forget what city it was. It may have been Gdansk, but they still occasionally come across bodies. So all of Slavic culture has different conceptions of the vampire. The vampire that made its way into Western Europe came from Serbia specifically, because that's where this epidemic was really happening, and then it spread. So this vampire belief in Poland, I guess one of the things I should say there that goes beyond that is that Slavic culture has a very strong belief even today that dead ancestors come back to visit their relatives. So if you're all familiar with like Day of the Dead from Central and South America, there's a Slavic ritual of that. It's almost identical, and that happens in springtime. In Russia, it's called Aradanitsa, and they go to visit their relatives' graves and they leave food out for them. But after your relatives die, within 30 to 40 days, they're supposed to come back and like you leave a spot at the table for them, and you don't touch that, and they're supposed to be there with you. So there's this general idea that the dead come back, and it's still present there. What, gamification of? Oh no, I mean, gosh, recently there's a Polish company called Bloober Team that just released a game called Kronos, and although they're not vampires, I mean, they draw off this stuff. Don't worry, there's tons of stuff over there like that. Yeah.
We have a question right here. Hello. Since I seem to be the Varney connection in the room, I am in fact an obscure UVA connection to Varney, which I will get into.
Well, I want to know. I'm curious.
But the one thing I did notice, I mean, Varney being 200 plus chapters long, very poorly written, it did introduce to me two things that really you don't see a lot in the current stereotype of a vampire. One is that the moonlight actually revived him when he died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And secondarily, Varney became a very sympathetic character because he did not want to be a vampire. He tried to end it. And also they gave the motivation as to how he became a vampire, which most of the other appearances of vampires don't really get into why they are vampires. Mm-hmm. They just are. Do you think any games will try to get into like the origin of the vampire and get into the
we definitely have that. I mean, Alucard's an example of sympathetic vampire, for example. I mean, you could talk all about that with Castlevania 3, right?
Or Symphony of the Night. I mean, the idea that there can be vampires that go from being a force of evil to being a force for good, whether that often is in response to a force of evil. Alucard is probably, or at least in my mind, one of the most prominent versions
biggest
of
ones,
it.
yeah.
The idea back to moonlight reviving, that does actually appear in. I'm not going to get the game, but I can picture the screen where you go at it and it's nighttime and your health is slowly regenerating, and so the mechanic that just is a way of just refilling a health bar, which is kind of nice, simple mechanic to do with that.
I want to say one more thing now. I liked Varney, and I read that whole thing this summer. I don't think I know. A friend of mine's a colleague, John Edgar Browning, and I was like, do you know if anyone's ever finished this book? He said, to my knowledge, no one has ever actually finished Varney. My daughter was like, Daddy, why are you doing this? I read that whole thing. You finished it? Oh, you did? That's a lot.
Yeah, he was saying that he
typed out 3/4 of it. He actually does kill himself at the end, by the way. He does it. He succeeds, yeah. I didn't mean to ruin the ending, but you know.
Yeah, I have a quick one. Thanks for the talk, guys. This is really, really cool.
Thanks.
I feel like it's the mental models are like, it makes for a fun play environment and like cool settings and scenes, and it also lets you like subvert and all that stuff you're talking about. I feel like once you have that mental model, you can then start to like explore different like themes and topics and other stuff. You mentioned good and evil. What are some of the like coolest like, I guess like higher level themes that like come out of this like vampire world? Like what are people exploring and working on?
I mean, correct me on this quote, vampires are a vehicle for exploring the human condition.
Exactly, yeah.
And so whether it be the forces of good and evil, whether it be the notion of life over death, whether it be power dynamics, these are all things that, you know, from a high level discussion come out of. And when we translate those into video games, we often see those move from mechanic to kind of narrative level, kind of overarching thing through a game. There is a point-and-click adventure game that we were playing.
Oh, you talking about the Cyberpunk one? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, a BloodNet.
BloodNet, thank you.
Oh, you actually knew what it was? Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I didn't review all of my game work on it. But the ideas there were not just talking about the mechanics of the vampire itself. We were elevating a level of looking at kind of underground culture and those sorts of ideas. So, you know, we moved from kind of game as obstacle course, game as challenge, up to game as narrative. I should not get into the 9 aesthetics, the 9 emotional reasons to play games, or I will keep you here for another hour.
Yeah. Hi, I'm a UVA parent, and my 4th-year son is enjoying your Dracula class this semester.
See? Everyone loves these classes.
Yes, like CS major. So this may be a vampire or pre-vampire question, but aren't there legends of people coming back from the dead for millennia in the Near East? And I don't know if some were vampires. I know you can build bodies out of clay and Jewish lore, and I wonder about Africa, India, China. Are there similar vampire legends?
Almost every culture in the world has some sort of conception of something like this. The Slavic one in particular, we don't even know how old it is. The oldest record we have of this thing, and we mentioned it in the class briefly, is 1047 AD, is the earliest recording, earliest time it was ever written down. That doesn't mean it started that year. It probably existed for a good 1,000 years before that. But in China, you have something called Zhengxi, which is the so-called stiff corpse that's very similar. Almost every culture in the world has something like this. So there's clearly some innate human need for a symbol to explain things. And one of the things you talked about in the class is that the vampire often symbolizes disease, because people didn't have an explanation for disease. They didn't know what viruses or bacteria were thousands of years ago. We take that for granted. So this thing explained where it came from. And the vampire epidemic that I mentioned, one of the reasons that epidemic happened was it was a rabies epidemic that was happening. That's what was actually killing people. Oh, up here, and then we have one back there too.
Yeah, I was curious, there's a newer mental model that seems to have been very prevalent in like the last 10, 15 years, is the traditional male vampire as an object of romantic desire by the young woman. And I was curious if you had any insight into if there's any historical basis of that, if it's a modern phenomenon, and also if you had any takes on that during your class, representations or subversions of that in the video games.
But in original vampire folklore, that's not there, because this is like a hideous thing. It's a rotting corpse. You're probably not going to find it attractive. That idea of the vampire being something like a sex object, Bela Lugosi, late 20s, early 30s. He became a sex symbol for playing that character. He played Dracula. He claimed, I don't know if anyone ever verified this, Lugosi claimed that 90% of the fan mail he got was from women who were obsessed with him, because he played a vampire. That's really where that starts, yeah. I know I think we had some games.
We had the vampire dating game.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we had,
There's like an RPG too with like furries or something in it.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
I didn't beat those games.
Oh.
I have two quick questions, real quick. Number one is that you mentioned earlier vampires like mythological, of Slavic origin.
Yeah.
And then you also pointed out Dracula. I vaguely recall Dracula then is a specific vampire, and I vaguely recall a fictional character.
Yeah.
Of a particular novel or something.
Oh, Varney? You mean we talking about Varney? That one?
Dracula.
Oh, Dracula. Okay.
Dracula.
Yeah. Yes.
I can't remember which particular and by whom.
Bram Stoker?
Oh, Bram Stoker, the original novel? The original novel, 1897, was written by Bram Stoker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you did mention.
Yeah, that
Okay.
one.
Question number two.
Yeah.
When I was a little girl, when I had to get up in the middle of the night to go to you know what, I would always try to carry a little cross. And you mentioned the cross and garlic. And the cross makes a lot of sense because you know what, right?
Yeah.
The cross. But what about garlic? What is it that would scare them away? I mean, besides the stink, but it could be very aromatic to some people.
Yeah.
So what is it about garlic?
Okay.
He's allergic.
Yeah.
Death.
Yeah. I mean, this is essentially what it is. In original folklore, the idea, well, keep in mind, the vampire spread disease. So when there's this is one of the reasons you see it so prevalent in Slavic folklore, is anytime there was a pandemic or an epidemic, this is where it came from, was this thing. And garlic is a known curative in a variety of ways. It's a blood purifier, it can reduce cholesterol, it can balance hormones in the body. It's also a minor antibiotic. So they recognized patterns in the consumption of garlic that made people healthier. And since the vampire is the opposite of health, naturally it doesn't like garlic. So we even have cases where they would dig up a body and they would cover it in garlic and then rebury it. And that was supposed to keep it in the ground. Yeah, and then of course it becomes a weapon.
Dan's garlic pills on sale in the lobby when you
Oh, there's some.
There you go.
Yeah, I had a question about the transmission to become another vampire, and at what point did it become food versus friend? Like you wanted to create another one.
Oh, that's original, yeah. Because first off, the vampire was supposed to come back to its family first. That's where it would come back. So if it had a widow, kids, it would attack them first. In Polish belief, for example, the vampire would always come back to its family first, but it was only allowed that, this is an interesting detail that you never find in video games. At least I don't know.
I'm waiting. Go for it, yeah.
The vampire can only travel, in some Polish belief, as far as the church bell in the village can be heard when it rings. It can't travel farther than that. I don't think I've ever seen
So there
it.
are church bells. I can name games where church bells appear, but I don't think it necessitates a distant travel.
I don't even know how you would use it in a game.
Oh, I can.
Okay. Oh. We'll have to make that a focus for the next time. Somebody do this. Yeah.
We've got a couple over here. One here.
I noticed there's a lot of cool designs in your games. How does design make me a better engineer? Like studying design rigorously.
Well, so, I mean, these games here, if we're thinking about the design of them, we're thinking about the stories that they're trying to tell, the mechanics they're trying to give, the mental models they're trying to reinforce. A lot of this is the same creative muscles that you flex when you are trying to write a story, sing a song. It's very, very similar. And what all we're trying to do whenever we're writing a program, whether it be a game or just any other piece of software, is we're trying to either solve a problem, we're trying to help someone, we're trying to reach them in an emotional way. And so, working those design muscles, working those ideas, those creative muscles, help you not only come up with good solutions, but probably better solutions than you would have just under normal circumstances of just building a single thing. Thank you.
Yeah, we got one back there too. I don't know how much time we got left.
In the game.
In the game Vampire Survivors, it has both vampire in the name and all the mental models, but there's no actual vampire barring the DLCs.
You beat me on the DLC.
Yeah.
Would you guys still consider that as part of this like vampire video game?
Okay, so it's really funny you asked this question, all right? Because part of the requirement of the class is they had to go play some vampire video games. And we gave them there's a whole list of these games that we gave. Of course, every Castlevania is on it. There's some that you might not have heard of, some you might have heard of. And constantly got asked the question about Vampire Survivors with that exact caveat. Like, there's a vampire on the cover, and it's called Vampire Survivors, but famously, when you play the game, there are no vampires actually in it. And there are other creatures of the night that you might say. There's, your bats, your mummies, all that sort of stuff. So what we said was, yes, you can do it, because they were leaning on the word vampire and that imagery as a way of pulling people in to play the game in the first place. And we actually looked at some pinball games. Like when we started examining games in the class, we took it all the way back. Here's a pinball game. It's a pinball game. It's a pinball game from the 1970s. There's nothing vampire about it except someone had a paintbrush and drew a bat on it and said vampire. It's like, it could have been anything. But the reason they did it was to lean into, this is a super game, like pinball. So yes, we let them do it because it was leaning on those ideas to bring them in.
Do you all have any favorite stories, games that never mention the word vampire, never beat you over the head with this is a vampire story or game, but you look at it and you go, there's a vampire there? I'll do a shout out to The Prophecy with Christopher Walken.
Yeah, I got The Hunger. The Hunger, it was a book first in 1981 by Whitley Strieber, and then the movie with David Bowie from 1983. They never used the word vampire in there. Bauhaus is in it, though. Technically, they have a word vampire in the song playing. But yeah, there's one.
We've got time for about one more question.
There was one, but way back there, I think maybe someone didn't get that.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night is my favorite vampire game, but you twisted it on me. I don't have one.
Oh, I can hear.
No, on the recording.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was just wondering about the spelling of the programming language. You mentioned Lua, something like that?
L-U-A, Lua. Yep. System is called Pico 8, P-I-C-O-8. Like Pico 8, like Pico de Gallo, but it's meant Pico like small, by a company called Lexalawful.
Hi. You mentioned that I think you said 1819 there were 2 books that were inspired by a challenge from Lord Byron. So are there any specific ways in which Frankenstein actually was inspired by the vampire legends?
No. So when Shelley wrote that, the basic story there is that Mary Shelley was not Mary Shelley yet. She was having an affair with Percy Shelley, who was still married. She was underage. And they were in Geneva, Switzerland to kind of like do their thing. Byron got into some big controversy I probably can't even publicly talk about in England. He got out of there, and Polidori who wrote The Vampire, was his physician. And so when they came down there, they started to read some Gothic stories one night when it was raining, and Byron was like, hey, we should see who can write the best story. So she came up with that idea. Byron started to work on a vampire story he didn't finish, and Polidori finished it. Percy Shelley, I forget what he did. So there isn't any known influence on her work because Frankenstein's published first, 1818. Vampire doesn't appear till 1819 for the first time. So, and Polidori had sort of left the group. So there's no known connection between the two other than they were responding to Byron's challenge.
Such a weird bet.
Yeah.
I bet I can write a word.
Yeah, I bet I can write a better one.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to us, both of you today. My quick question is, can you sign my book afterwards?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll sign it.
Thank you.
Not me. Oh, my daughter has.
Oh, okay.
Shouldn't have said that. Sorry.
All right, last question.
Where'd the name Dracula come from?
That is a good question.
That's a good question.
I can't answer it.
Okay. There is a real historical figure. Some people refer to him as Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Tepes in the old language, but he called himself Vlad Dracula. So the reason he's called that is his father, Vlad II, was called Dracul. And Dracul, they call him Vlad Dracul, because he was a member of a secret society called the Order of the Dragon. They're kind of like Knights Templar, basically. And so they called him Vlad the Dragon, or Vlad Dracul. And so his son, Dracula, that means Vlad, son of Dracul, son of the dragon. So that was his name. And we know he signed his name like that at least 2 times in 2 verified historical documents. He signed his name Dracula. So when Stoker was working on the novel Dracula, originally he called his as dumb as this sounds, Stoker wasn't a good writer. He originally called his vampire Count Vampire. His vampire was originally called Count Vampire. That was his name, Count Vampire. That's all dumb it was.
Name's on the tin. There you go.
And so he came across the name Dracula by accident doing some research, and he was like, wow, that sounds better. And then he wrote it down. That was it. That's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for your question.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of Lifetime Learning, I'd like to thank our speakers. We've got some gifts for you. And
thank you.
And we understand that it's both of your birthday weekend. So
Yes,
there's
true.
a cupcake in there for you as well.
Garlic infused.
Garlic cupcake.
And this is our 20th anniversary of the More Than Score program.
Oh, wow.
So we've got some cupcakes out front while supplies last, but also grab some coffee and snacks on your way out. The bookstore is here, so you can buy the book on your way and enjoy the rest of your day. We have recorded this talk, so this QR code here has our vodcast library, and you can check out our website for upcoming programs. Enjoy the game. Thank you.
Thanks.